So, the next one is on ergos. We've got Mr. Royne says, seat height availability, preferably seat height comparison with different heighted people. NSH says, I took a demo ride on the 1300 GS and weirdly I felt the seat comfort. To be specific, the angle at which the rider sits was much better on the 1250. Not sure if it was just me or you noticed that too.
Good question.
Did you notice it too?
I think it's this thing that I've mentioned before on the pod, which is that I'm not sure if it's just the angle, but generally I kind of prefer slightly firmer seats. I think they just put the pressure on your sit bones in your butt rather than just spreading the pressure all over your butt cheeks. And the softer saddle that I found on the 1250 GS and slightly softer saddle on stuff like the Pan America, for me just gives you that all over pressure, which is slightly less comfortable. It just felt a bit firmer. I think I had the comfort heated seat on the 1300 GS press bike I borrowed. Slightly firmer and just puts the pressure in the right places so it's more comfortable over time. So that's kind of what I found comfort-wise. And generally, I would say, unless it's rock hard, I sort of slightly prefer that firmer foam in the seat. And then on to the seat height differences. Well, it's 850mm as standard. With the adaptive ride height, it's 820, so it slows, as you slow down to a stop, it'll drop both the front and rear shocks, so the bike sits down. You never notice it happening. It's so weird. When you're moving, you feel like you're on a big, tall adventure bike. When you stop, you feel like you're on just like a normal street bike, and I think it's really, really well implemented. Yeah. So if you are a bit challenged in terms of like height, for someone like me who's 5'9" or 175 centimeters, so I'm not massively tall, it just felt super easy to get on with, and I'd be really confident on that bike, even if I had luggage, passenger, and it was all, top heavy. I think it'd do a solid job there with that kind of setup. There are some different seat heights. I think you can get a higher one and a lower one. So I think maybe like 20mm either way. So obviously with the adaptive ride height and the low seat, you can get it a little bit lower as well. But there is also a sports suspension package, which is like sport in the off-road sense, which gives it more travel. And I think that lifts it again. So if you had the high seat and the sports suspension package, you can go up to something like 890, perhaps. So there's like a massive range, basically, with all these different features. I think just go to the dealer and discuss kind of which one you want. But, as for what's going to fit what height of rider, I'd say for my height, 850, and then the adaptive... Well, 850 would be fine for me, but then with the adaptive ride height as well, it makes it feel like a doddle. Anyone shorter, look for the low seat and the adaptive ride height, especially if you're going to load it up for touring. Anyone taller, there's the tall seat, and maybe the adaptive ride height becomes less appealing. Or you could go standard seat and no adaptive ride height. But I guess what the different height in seat is going to give you that the ride height doesn't is the gap between the pegs and the seat. So if you feel cramped on the standard seat, put the tall one on, and that'll open up that leg angle. But then maybe you still find it a reach down to the floor when you stop. Adaptive ride height is a good thing. So although there's all those different combos, they do slightly different things, if you know what I'm saying. One could be comfort on the bike. Whereas like the seat height and the ride height are going to affect how it feels to get your feet down.
Makes sense. It sounds to me like that is the biggest range in seat heights of any bike I've heard of recently. But it is quite a particular thing. When I was trying to sell the Africa Twin, I did notice that was a huge part of people just turning up just to have a sit on it to see whether or not their legs dangled.
Mate.
And it was frustrating because I'm not a dealership and I couldn't sort it out for them. There we go.
I think that's partly why people love going to motorcycle shows and sitting on them. They just get a sense of whether the bike's going to fit them or not. And
Absolutely.
That is question number one, I suppose, for a lot of people. If you don't feel comfy on it, then, is that going to be fun to ride? Possibly not. This is common as well in the large adventure market. Like if you look at the Multistrada V4, it can go from 840 to 860 adjustable seat height, which the GS doesn't have an adjustable standard seat, but that does. And then there's a high accessory, which can go from 855 to 875, and a low accessory that goes from 810 to 830, I think. And there might even be more adjustment with suspension packages. I'm not quite sure. But effectively, you're going from 810 as the lowest right up to 875. And I think it's just possibly the kind of sheer Oh no, you can get a low seat and low suspension kit and go as low as 790. So like, I think it's just the size of the bikes that for some people want a big bike like that because they are tall, and so they want that tall seat so that they feel comfortable and not cramped on it. But also because they're such big bikes but still appealing to shorter riders, you really have to give it that full range of making it comfortable for everybody and make it feel like they can get their feet down, because they're all around 240 kilos before you even start adding luggage and accessories and stuff. So I think that explains the sort of variation. Whereas like a little naked bike or whatever, you know, most people are just happy to jump on and get on with it.
Very true.